How you can make $10,000 in 30 days wholesaling real estate.
So you can never fix a bad buy. If you buy it wrong, you're done. It's game over.
I talk to a lot of real estate investors. When they contact me, honestly, they don't know what they want. They just see other people investing in real estate.
If you want to become a millionaire, real estate is definitely the easiest and fastest way to become one.
Mr. Seller, how old is the AC unit? When was the last time it was replaced? So these are questions that help the seller to understand that there's a lot of fees associated with remodeling the property.
But when you buy a house, the receipt of that house is called a deed, or the certificate of ownership is called a deed.
The biggest mistake that I see people see is fudging numbers. So they get into a deal and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna buy this for 50 grand. And then I'm gonna put $50,000 of rehab into it, and then I'm gonna sell it for $150,000. Because they become emotionally attached to the deal and they make numbers look like it works, so the deal makes sense, then they buy the deal and then they realize that they weren't realistic with those numbers. So in that deal where you buy it for $50,000 and then you go in and plan to put $50,000 into the rehab of it, but once you get into the deal, you realize that it's gonna cost more money than what you planned on spending. So let's say you spend $75,000 on the rehab. I know, it sounds like a lot of money to go over budget, but I've been there. I've done that from personal experience. You can blow budgets very, very badly because you didn't plan right on the front end, because you looked at something, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't need drywall. And then you get into it and the whole house needs the drywall redone. So you have to, on the front end, plan the budget accordingly. And then let's say on the back end, you're planning on selling this for $150,000. But once you get the whole project renovated, you're excited to list it and sell it and make some money. You realize that the comps that you were basing the house off of was in the neighborhood next to it. And your house backs up to a freeway. You know, again, you're emotionally tied to it at the beginning. You may overlook some things like that, but you get to the end of the project and you go to list it and you realize that it's only gonna sell for $125,000 instead of $150,000. Guess what? You just spent your entire, 3-6 months renovating this property and you're gonna lose money. You're gonna literally lose money. You're gonna have to pay somebody to buy the house from you. It's not a good feeling to be in. So you can never fix a bad buy. If you buy it wrong, you're done. It's game over. You will never make money from it. You can't move the house. You can't tweak the house. You can't pick it up and put it in a new neighborhood. You can't, make up budgets because you actually have to spend the money to renovate the property. You can't fix a bad buy.
It is the process of buying a home without having to qualify, without having to assume the loan, without having to show bank records, tax records, proof of funds, or anything really. What you're doing in subject to is you are taking over somebody else's existing debt and you are taking over the property. So what happens in a subject to transaction is somebody owns a house. That house has a mortgage to Wells Fargo. You, the buyer, instead of paying off that mortgage to Wells Fargo, you simply take ownership of the property by transferring the deed or the certificate of ownership into your name, but the mortgage always stays in the seller's name. So the way I look at it is this. Cody, do you buy things with credit card?
Yes.
Okay, so what kind of credit card do you have, by the way?
Amex, dog.
Okay, so Cody's an Amex guy. I'm an Amex guy too. I buy literally the first card on my wallet right here is an Amex. It's one of two things I carry on my wallet is an Amex, right? So everything is paid for with somebody else's money. We agree with that, right? So you go to the grocery store, Cody, let's say you go down to the grocery store to Albertsons, Bash's, Smith's, Kroger's, whatever it is, wherever you are in the country, and you buy $200 worth of groceries with your American Express.
Mm-hmm.
Who owns those groceries?
I do.
You're telling me that even though you used American Express's money to buy those groceries are not owned by American Express.
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so what happens is you get a receipt, right? You get the certificate of ownership or the receipt of those groceries, and you walk out of that store, and if the security guard stopped you and said, how do I know you own those groceries? What would you show them? The receipt.
My receipt.
Okay, but hold on. But you still used American Express's money.
Yes.
Okay, so this is very similar to buying a house. Okay. So what happens is when you go down to a bank and you go, I want to buy that house over there, the bank loans the money to you to buy the house. And weirdly, the bank doesn't own that house. The bank loaned you the money. You have a debt, just like you do to the credit card company. You make a minimum payment, or you can pay it all off in one fell swoop if you decide to do so. But when you buy a house, the receipt of that house is called a deed, or the certificate of ownership is called a deed. Okay. In a grocery store, it's called a receipt. With a house, it's called a deed, but it's basically the same exact thing. It shows who has ownership.
And when you're starting your real estate investing business, is to know where you want to go as a real estate investor. There's a lot of different influences out there. Some people will tell you to start off wholesaling. Some people will tell you to fix and flip. Some people will tell you to do creative finance. Some people will tell you to buy and hold. The object is to know what you want out of the business. What's your purpose for being in the business or getting started in the business in the first place? What do you need right now? Do you need cash flow? Do you need quick cash? Those are two totally different things. You have to get clear on what you need in order to know where you're going to go as a real estate investor. Let me give you an example. If you needed milk, if you saw that you were running out of milk in your refrigerator, what would you do? 9 times out of 10, you're going to get into your car. You're going to put the car in drive. You're going to drive down the street. You're going to go to the grocery store. You're going to walk to the grocery store, to the milk aisle, and you're going to pick up the milk. You're going to take it to the register. You're going to pay for it, and you're going to go back home and put that milk in your refrigerator. Before you went to the grocery store, you had an end goal. So you saw the end goal of getting the milk out of the refrigerator. You had zero doubt that you were going to be able to go into the grocery store and purchase the milk before you actually got the milk. It's the same exact thing when you're setting goals. You have to have a clear vision. You have to see it before it actually happens. You have to know where you're going. So when you get into the vehicle, which is real estate investing, and you're the driver, and you put that vehicle in drive, you know exactly where you're going. I talk to a lot of real estate investors. When they contact me, honestly, they don't know what they want. They just see other people investing in real estate. They see other people having success, and they're looking at their success and saying, I want that too. But is it really what you want? 9 times out of 10, it's not. So get clear on what you want. Know what you want when you start this business. And then you design this business around what you want out of life.
So let's talk about real estate. If you want to become a millionaire, real estate is definitely the easiest and fastest way to become one. I know you've heard it before. People think that real estate is super expensive, it's super risky, and it's super difficult, but that is simply not true. I learned how to invest in real estate the correct way from my parents' basement. I literally had bad credit, multiple foreclosures, kids, you name it, I had it. I was a complete disaster, and I've turned that around, so you can too. Real estate is something that you can start investing in with no money and bad credit. Yes, you have heard that right. But you have to know what it is that you're doing, and you gotta be doing the right things. The reason why I ended up in my parents' basement was because of real estate investing. I thought I knew what I was doing, and I was flipping houses with a job. Now I'm literally doing Airbnbs, and I've changed my business so much where it's always profitable. I'm literally in an Airbnb that we're setting up right now, and I'm going to tell you why that's one of the best markets that you should be getting into, and also other markets that exist in real estate that make a ton of money. Okay, so now that you are sold that real estate is the absolute best thing to do, and you're convinced because you should be, let's talk about millionaire. It is pretty easy to become a millionaire in real estate because there are 3 definitions of millionaire. The first one being assets. If you have assets that equal $1 million, your net worth is $1 million and you're a millionaire. So again, pretty easy to become a millionaire with real estate because the value of the property is an asset and it counts towards your net worth. The second definition, and this is the most important, is $1 million per year. $1 million per year breaks out to about $83,333.33 a month. If you divide 1 million by 12, that's the number you get. And if you are averaging $83,000 a month, you're making $1 million a year. To me, that's the most important number for Millionaire.
Setting upfront agreements and expectations. When you talk to a seller, you should get an upfront agreement that if you guys discuss the property and review all the details, and you can make an offer that they're in a position to make a decision today. So that's one thing. But let's say you didn't do the upfront agreement and get the, set the expectations up front. What can you do if you get stuck or derailed by this objection? I have to think about it. This is how I normally answer that objection. Great, Mrs. Seller, I completely understand this is a big decision that you need to think about, but I think two heads are better than one. What is it that you have to think about specifically? Is it me? Is it the offer? And try to box in the objection and really uncover the real reason for the stall, because I have to think about it. Normally that's just a stall to buy some more time. So the next one is the price is too low. I'm pretty sure everybody has heard that. And we know every seller thinks their property is worth more than it really is. The best way to do that, instead of proving the seller wrong or why their property isn't worth what it is to ask questions and get them to devalue the property in their own mind. So what does that look like? Well, Mr. Seller, I can really appreciate, you wanted more for the property, and I wish I could pay you more. But let me ask you a few questions, Mr. Seller. When was the last time you've done updates or remodeled the kitchen and bath? Have you done any updates in the past 5 years to these areas of the property? And a lot of times the answer is no. All right, Mr. Seller, how old is the AC unit? When was the last time it was replaced? What about the roof? How long ago was it since you got a new roof? So these are questions that help the seller to understand that there's a lot of fees associated with remodeling the property. And you can always bring up the point of closing costs on the front end, closing costs on the back end when you sell it, and also holding costs that you're gonna have with the duration of the fix and flip.
So let's go over how you can make $10,000 in 30 days wholesaling real estate. In full transparency, $10,000 is a small wholesale fee for us. In the last few years, our average assignment fee has been over $25,000. But with the market slowing down and all these different things changing, let's keep it conservative and go over step by step how you can wholesale real estate in 30 days. First off, if you've never heard of wholesaling, it's much easier than flipping a house. Normally when you do a house flip, you've got to find a good deal, find the money to purchase that deal. Could be your money, could be somebody else's money, could be the bank's money. And then once you buy the deal, you've got to fix it up, get it renovated, get it really nice. Then you go and list it with a realtor. It then sits on the market waiting for a really good offer for you to take. And if it's in a market like we are today, then the buyers are a lot pickier. They're gonna want repair requests, they're gonna want the world. But assuming you get an offer and everything is square and their loan goes through, then you get paid and you make your profit. House flipping is great. I flipped hundreds and hundreds of homes, but it is a long process typically when you buy a normal house flip. On the other side, you can just wholesale, which is far less risky and way quicker cash. The way wholesaling works is you still go back to step one of finding a really good deal, but instead of trying to get the money to go buy the deal then fix it up, you instead just find an end buyer. You find a house flipper who's wanting to buy it themselves. You find an investor who wants to keep it as a rental property. And as long as you can find somebody who's willing to pay above what you have it under contract for, you can sell it to them without having to buy it yourself. You do this by assigning the contract to this buyer.
In any given marketplace, there are investors that we call cash buyers who are looking for distressed properties that they can buy, fix, and rent, or buy, fix, and flip. These investors have cash or access to cash, and they're actively, eagerly looking for deals each and every day. What a real estate wholesaler does is they go out in the marketplace and they find and source good deals, and they actually negotiate and enter into contract with motivated sellers on very desirable distressed properties. By entering into contract with sellers, they now control that property, and then they take that deal to those cash buyer investors and offer to let the cash buyer take over their position in the contract and buy the property, of course, for a fee. The wholesaler profit on the deal is the difference between what a cash buyer will pay for the right to buy the position on the contract and what the wholesaler has the contract for with the seller. For example, if the cash buyer will pay $75,000 for that deal and the wholesaler has the contract with the seller for $60,000, the wholesaler has a $15,000 spread on the deal. Wholesalers are extremely valuable in the marketplace because they do all of the work to find, source, and bring good deals to cash buyers. Get good at it and you can make a lot of money. So if you're just getting started, follow these 10 steps to get your first deal. Here we go. Step number 1 is to get your business set up. Register an entity with your state. Get your EIN number so that you can file a tax return and open a bank account. Now this gives you liability protection because now you're not transacting in your personal name. Now this isn't critical to doing your first deal, but why wait? And honestly, it's easy and inexpensive to do.
What a man said.